This video is entitled Selectors and is a review of the CSS selectors you've probably already seen. This is a companion to Chapter 10 of the book So You Want to Learn to Use HTML and CSS by James M. Renaud, PhD. I'm Dr. Renaud and I'll be taking you through this video presentation. In this video, I'm going to discuss the four basic CSS selectors: the tag selector, the class selector, the ID selector, and the universal selector. We've used the tag selector throughout the previous video presentations and throughout the weeks, but I just want to review it real quickly. Remember, if you put the HTML tag as the selector and then the curly braces, all of the style within the curly braces applies to all of the HTML elements of that type. So if you want to grab a pair or apply the style to all the paragraphs, you just say P, or if you wanted to use the style on the header, you just say header, and it uses the HTML tag. The second selector that you've seen in other presentations is the ID selector, and you use a pound followed by the ID, and that will find the element, if it exists, that has the ID attribute and matches the ID. So remember, only one element in an HTML page, only one HTML element can have an ID, and this will let you zero in on that one element if it exists. Remember that your style sheet can be used for several different web pages. So you may have a style for an ID that you use on one page, but that style is applied to another page that doesn't have that ID, it would be ignored. The third selector of the big four is the class selector, and the class selector will select all HTML elements that have a class defined. So you would define class equal a class name or multiple class names with a space between them. And this selector will select all of the HTML tags, even if they're all different kinds of types, that have that same class. So the class selector begins with a period, followed by the class name. And the last of the four uncombined CSS selectors is the universal selector, and it's represented by the star. You don't put anything after the star, just star, and that selects all of the elements and applies the style directly to everything. Now that's most often used with some advanced combinators, and we'll see that in a future video presentation. So here we have a CSS sheet that has a body tag, a tag selector, so it's going to apply the background color of that. That would be a light gray to the body. Then there's another selector here that would find the tag with the ID of author and make its background color yellow. There's another selector that says find all of the elements with a class of warning and make their text color or their foreground color red. And then you see the star selector that sets the font family for every element on the page. Now, notice that the font family says Lucidia Console, then it says Courier New, but Courier New's been misspelled. So it'll never find that style on any web browser, so it'll ignore that font family, followed by monospace. So if your browser has Lucidia Console, it will show the page in Lucidia Console, and if your browser doesn't, it will just fall back to a monospace font family. So here's the HTML, and you can see up above how those styles were applied. The two tags that were of class warning are red. The one tag that has an ID of author is yellow. Everything else is gray for a background, and the universal selector applied the monospace font family to the entire page. So there you go. And this concludes this review of the big four CSS selector types. I'd like to say thank you for watching. This presentation is copyright 2020 by James Imrano, PhD. This work is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial Share Alike 4.0 International License. And if you find any errors or you want to discuss this or you've got some suggestions, please don't hesitate to shoot me an email at jim@renejm.com. Again, thanks for watching.